Hey guys, it's Tanner here with Pristine Auto Detailing. Today we're going to cover a few things. The first thing we're going to go over is assessing paint damage such as scratches, scuffs, marks, and then also paint transfer as well as paint chips right here you can see. How to assess the damage and understanding what you need to fix the problem or at least improve it to a certain percentage. So that's what we're going to cover. If you guys have any questions as far as anything I don't cover today that regards to wet sanding, polishing, or compounding, feel free to leave a comment in the section below. So yeah, first thing we're going to start out is if you have an issue like this on your paint and you're wondering can it be fixed or can I fix it, I guess the first thing you're going to need to ask yourself is you need to see what you're looking at and understand how to assess the problem. So first thing that I look at is I'm going to run obviously clean off the surface, any type of solution. You can honestly just use water and a microfiber towel would be fine. If it's really dirty, you might need to use like a quick detailer spray. Yeah, after it's cleaned off, the first thing we're going to do, really just rub your hand over the area, see what it feels like, and we have some on the handle up here as well. If it feels really bumpy and like there's like a gash in it, obviously, and you see this right here where it's like the same color throughout, that means the paint and the clear coat have actually chipped off and been removed from the paint. So to improve this or fix it, you cannot just simply buff this out. This will need touch-up paint, and then a longer process after that, which I'll go over today. Something like this right here, you can see like that matte gray color again, so that needs touch-up paint. But these little specks right here and these streaks, especially right here, you're gonna feel it, and it's gonna feel almost like silky. That is for the most part paint transfer from the other vehicle. Now if you feel like those rigid bumps again, and it feels like it's going into it, obviously that is a scratch. But stuff like this, that is actually the paint is completely removed, whereas different from a scratch, the paint is still in contact, but you have a scratch in the clear coat. So yeah, the first thing after I've assessed it, I'm going to look at what I need. For something like this gash right here, the first step that I'm going to do to actually all of this, even this handle right here, is since I already have to do some wet sanding with the touch-up paint, I'm going to wet sand everything with 1500 grit. You could use a little bit more aggressive wet sanding techniques. You could use probably 1000, but for this I'm just going to stay on the safe side because that's all I necessarily need. And then from there I'll move up. With paint transfer removal, you can get away with using something like a magic eraser sometimes because it's actually a little bit gritty and it'll remove it. Or you could also use, if you have a polisher, you could use like a compound and a polish, either or with a polishing pad, and most of the time it will remove it. But for something like this, like I said, I'm just going to wet sand it because it will take it off for the most part, and then I'll prep my area to start filling in this huge gash right here. And then you'll see, I'll show you the steps here in a second. Okay, so I'm ready to start wet sanding the area. If you feel like this step is not needed for your car, feel free to fast forward to later in the video. I'll talk about polishing these areas instead of wet sanding because I have to guess probably most of you are not going to feel comfortable doing wet sanding. So yeah, first thing I'm going to do is spray the area down with water, make sure it's fairly damp. Make sure wet sanding block is wet, and then you just want to do fine even strokes, and that will make it even throughout. You don't want to press on one part of the sanding block more than the other. You want it as even as possible because that's going to give you the best finish instead of leaving a ton of sanding marks that are deeper in some areas than others, which can ultimately be removed for the most part, but sometimes it's just safer to just take your time and go slow with this. Like I said, I'm using 1500 grit sandpaper right now. You can see that white stuff coming off, that's the clear coat. physically removing part of the clear coat. And then this spot up here. That looks like I've pretty much got it all. Now I just have those white spots where that shows this is where this all needs touch-up paint. And when I do my touch-up paint, I actually just go straight to the dealership. It's not going to be exactly perfect. You're going to get it really close, but I feel like that's the easiest way instead of buying a kit, because I've not yet had enough time spent with touch-up paint to know how to mix it myself and do all that. So I just go to the dealership and get it whenever I have to do customer vehicles. So now you're going to see, if you did wet sand, you're going to see these, it's going to start turning white. That's just meaning that obviously the surface is very, it's been abrased, and the only way to remove that to make it look like this again is to polish it back out. But that's not what we're going to do yet, because it still needs to be sanded a little bit more, and then we will do touch-up paint. This is also used, one thing that this service also is really good for is removing orange peel. A lot of times, even in newer cars with clear coat, you'll see this like bumpiness texture in the clear coat. A lot of people don't notice it just because they don't look closely and they don't care enough to look, honestly. But with detailers, especially myself, I always notice it in the paint. Not a huge deal, but some customers, they notice it and they want it removed. Well, the easiest way to do that, well, I wouldn't say easiest, but the best approach to moving it correctly and having the best result is wet sanding. Yeah, now you can see it's all, it's really smooth, and it's ready to get touch-up. Alright, now for the fun part. Honestly, there's no real way I can explain on how to apply touch-up paint besides do it as slowly, as evenly as possible. I mean, you could spend hours trying to follow this line perfectly, trying to make it exactly how it is. But if you're wet sanding, you can make up for the little places that you mess up on. Just try to do it as best you can. Keep your hand as still as possible, and don't have a ton of paint on your brush. Use as little as possible. You don't need to put half the bottle on one spot. Just try to do as evenly as possible and use as little paint as possible so there's not as big as a bump if you're not wet sanding. And once the paint's in the little groove, you can kind of move it around. So I got those spots. And I'll probably have to do another layer of paint, another level of it, to make it completely even. So there's not like a little ridge around it, but we'll see if that's necessary or not. And what I'm going to do after I've done this, I'm actually going to go over it with a layer of clear coat, which is going to make it look as OEM as possible. Like I said, if you're a detailer trying to offer this service, one thing I would never do is tell them it's going to look perfect, because it probably won't. Actually, I 100% guarantee you that it won't. It might look 95% better, which is definitely an improvement, but never 100%. So, one little tip from a past experience that I've had. Okay. And I'll probably let this dry for about, I would say about 45 minutes to an hour, and then you're safe to go to start wet sanding it to make it even again or polish it. I would not start polishing any time under that though, because you're going to have issues with it still being wet, and it's just going to mess up what you just put on there. So, and your pad's going to get paint all in it. So, take the time just to do something else, detail some other part of the car if that's another few other parts to detail, or just take a break and come back and do it. And like I said, if you have plenty of time on your hands, I would say an hour and a half. But if you're kind of trying to get the job done as soon as possible, wait 30 to 45 minutes, feel it with your hand before you start again, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so I'm all finished up as far as applying the touch-up paint. You can see right here where it's a little bit darker. There's some spots right there, and I have sanded everything down. I used 1500, and then to make this a lot more flat and even, I had to use 800. You can see there's some of the marks right here where it's uneven. By the way, I had to pull the car in because it started raining, so that's why the lighting is a lot different now. Yeah, as you can see, everything, obviously you guys can't feel it, but it's very flat, and the paint is even with this, the clear coat on here. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use an orange polishing pad. There's many other types you could use. You could use microfiber, cutting pad, tons of different options. As far as what I'm going to go with though, the Roops, and then the orange foam cutting pad, and then polishing pad, and then I'm going to use the Meguiar's 105 compound, and you'll see it will take away all of these sanding marks from the wet sanding, and then hopefully it will shine like new again. You guys will be able to see the improvement that it was made, that was made before. So I'm going to polish it up real quick, and then I'll show you the result. And then you could follow this up with a like a Meguiar's 205 or some type of white polish to finish it out, but you just want to make sure those marks are gone. I don't know how it looks in the camera, but it looks pretty good on here. You can see that's the spot right there. Like I said, it's not going to look perfect, so I say never promise your customer perfection when it comes to stuff like this, especially because it's probably not going to happen. And I spent a lot more time than I would have if this was actually a at another location where I was kind of in a time constraint. It would be a lot more, even more of an issue, just because I would have less time. So I had a lot more time to work on this. But yeah, overall I would say it looks pretty good. I'd say probably about an 80% improvement. You can definitely tell. I mean, this does not look exactly like this. The sparkling effect and this touch-up paint that looks nothing like this. But it definitely looks a lot better. I'm going to go over it with a one thin layer of clear coat with the brush. Before that, I'm going to polish it out, make sure there's no micro marring from the compounding, and then yeah, it'll be all finished up. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, if I didn't cover anything detailed enough, please let me know so I can answer your questions and hopefully make another video if necessary. But as far as it goes, I mean, this is pretty much the process. I did use, I actually got this idea from Larry Casella from Ammo NYC. I use colored pencils, pens, anything random with a flat end on it. And I'll actually super glue. I'll cut out a piece of wet sanding paper. This is 1500 grit, and I'll put it on here. So when I go to sand this, it's a lot more of an area that is it's more distinct. A lot less area to mess up with if you have a huge piece of sandpaper. This is a lot more controlled, and you can be a lot more I guess accurate with it is the best word to say. So yeah, feel free to leave the comments in the section below. And that's it for the day. Thank you.